Hi, I'm Jeff Ray, your host for Economic Outlook. Welcome to our program and a new season of Economic Outlook. We're excited to be back, and we hope you enjoy the show. And we hope you'll join us each week as we discuss the region's most important economic development initiatives with a panel of experts. We're kicking off a season of Economic Outlook. George and I plan to take you to all corners of the region for an inside look at the people and the projects driving economic growth. We're sitting down today to look ahead at the season and talk about some of the things you can expect to hear more about coming up on Economic Outlook. We've welcomed dozens of guests to the studio, taking you out and introduced you to some great people and projects in the region. My co-host and I, George Lepiniotis, are looking ahead to what's to come in this season of Economic Outlook. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Jeff.
George, we're back for a new season, excited. This is our 20th season of Economic Outlook. Not you and I, but we had some great predecessors who put the program in place. We're thrilled for the chance to keep telling economic development stories. I wanted to say welcome back.
Thank you. And 20 years, what a great opportunity. We can see the people that are behind the scenes making our jobs a little easier. It's such a great thing that we do, telling local stories. Excited to be a part of it again this year, but really excited for 20 years of this show.
Yeah, George, we're really this year celebrating 50 years of PBS Michiana WNIT, and so it's been a fun part for both of us, I know, to be part of that 50-year celebration as well. So we're looking forward to new season. So George, we tell stories of kind of people and projects that are driving economic growth. I think you and I are both a little bullish on what's happening in the community. Give us what are you feeling about the economy out there these days?
Well, yeah, I think we are bullish on our local regional economy. I don't know that our national economy is quite as robust as maybe it has been in recent memory, but locally and regionally, I think that our economic projects, our development projects are stellar. Some of the largest projects to ever occur in the state of Indiana, and probably rivaling some of the largest in the state of Michigan with its large industrial base. We know that GM is making a large investment, Amazon is making a large investment, and I understand there are others following in their footsteps, so we are open for business.
In both Indiana and Michigan in particular, the business climates have been such, typically 9th, 10th in the country, and both states experiencing some great projects. You touched on a couple there, and I think of like our neighbors in LaPorte, for example, who have a wonderful Microsoft project advancing. You mentioned Amazon. We're going to be out early in the season talking about the Amazon project a little bit. They, as you mentioned, the biggest economic development announcement in Indiana's history by more than 2 times. And so about $11 billion investment happening here in St. Joe County. There'll be thousands of construction workers over the next couple of years building that site. And so early in the season, we're going to have a chance to give you some additional insight from executives from Amazon and Governor Holcomb and some others that are going to be here to celebrate that opening, or the groundbreaking of that. And so kind of exciting to see that.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And when we talk about these projects and what they bring to a region, it really does touch so many lives. The Amazon project is something where they worked with our firm, they worked with your chamber, they're going to work with local construction companies, they are working with local landowners, they are working with local internet and other service providers. There are just, the touch points are immense. And when we really do say that these are large developments, it isn't just an outside company coming in, building their thing, and taking off. This is an investment in the community, and those dollars are really felt here in this community.
I think long term too, we all hopefully feel some benefit. This will be the largest taxpayer in St. Joseph County, as we grow the pie, everybody's piece of the pie gets a little bit smaller, and so we're excited to see those happening. On the data center side in particular, Indiana's done well with Google in Fort Wayne, with Meta down on the Ohio River, with AWS, with Microsoft in LaPorte, Microsoft here in St. Joe County. And so certainly the climate is ripe for data centers. And if some of you remember last season, we talked a little bit about data centers and why that climate was right. My guess is because of what's happening in that space, we'll focus on that a little bit more this year too, as we dive deeper into those opportunities. But I think you bring up a great point. Like, it's hundreds of people that have to come together to put this puzzle together. And so whether it's the AWS or GM project, or it's the project we're sitting at here. So so you and I are downtown Mishawaka right now. We're in the Ironworks event center overlooking Buter Park, and it's kind of near and dear to me a little bit. I spent a couple years here in my past. I was Community Economic Development Director many years ago, overseeing the demolition, environmental cleanup, and some of the early stages of the redevelopment. The mayor has taken that torch and made it burn bright and brought some great development opportunities here. And as we look out windows on either side of where we're sitting today, we see new residential construction happening. We see lots of people out walking the River Walk, and then we're hearing other plans too. And these are some of the things I think we'll touch a little bit more on as the season goes, as the Mill Phase 2 is under construction. The Avalon has just finished construction down here. And now there's some hope for the 100 Center. And so some of the old timers, and I put myself in that category, now remember the 100 Center. And when in its heyday, it was the vibrant gathering place and mixed use development happening down here. And so under one owner now, with a plan to redevelop that and looking for some grant funds to kind of help do it. So I think there's a great story there to sort of show the current condition of the 100 Center and talk about the vision for that and how it fits into this larger picture, but none of it happens without lots and lots of people putting their pieces together.
Yeah, well, thank you for telling our viewers where we're at, because it's obviously not the studio. The crew and I had bets on how long it would take you to reference that we were downtown Mishawaka, given your love for Mishawaka, and mine as well. Mishawaka, and we chose this place, I think, somewhat purposefully, because we really are proud of what Mishawaka has done, and it is an economic case study almost. A unique place where you have strong residential. You and I talked about before, most people forget that many of our regional shopping areas, Target, Costco, the mall, are all in the Mishawaka address. And that is just but one part of Mishawaka, though, and this downtown has really taken off in a unique way, but a great way. We've done shows down here before with Mayor Wood, who has worked really hard, and I know you worked hard as the previous mayor to do probably even more of the dirty work. This was a large industrial site, and to see it today, as I look out these windows, it reminds me of probably what our region looked like a couple hundred years ago. There's just a nice natural setting to it, but yet so much fun to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we pick up on some themes, and you and I have had a chance to tell those stories a little bit over recent years. And when you think about characteristics, and so we think about the old brownfields, for example, and in each of the communities in our viewing area has had them and has tried to figure out how to redevelop them. So if you're in South Bend and you're thinking about Studebaker, or now Drury's is now finally going to be demolished and redeveloped, we hope. And Mishawaka's talking about Dodge, and Elkhart's it wrestled with some of their, and so really each of the communities has wrestled with that. They've all made a pretty strategic commitment to open up riverfront access, and I think that's exciting. And as we sit here and watch people just walking by very regularly, enjoying the river on a part of Mishawaka that never ever saw the river before 2000, probably. And so Elkhart's done a phenomenal job in their river district, opening up the riverfront and attracting uses similar to what we see here. South Bend has activated their riverfront and continues to do that. We'll be at Sites Park at some point. We'll show you the Cascade, the new investment that's happened over there, because again, they've activated that riverfront in that area. And Sites Park will finally get open after a couple years of closing. But then if you get into Niles and Buchanan and even go up the river a little bit, that water is such an important part of the revitalization, and the water used to be a really critical driver of power, and so all of the industry located there, and now they've moved somewhere else and stuff. So I think it's been really fun for both of us to tell those stories a little bit and share those case studies a little bit in each of the communities around, and our goal always is to get out to the broad geography. Our viewing area really goes kind of Warsaw, Kosciuszko County, all up into St. Joe, Benton Harbor, and we want to make sure we're going to all those places.
And that was something that I was going to mention, and that is really a testament to who you are, who we are. You were the mayor of Mishawaka, but I know that you continue to have a presence in Berrien County and in other places, and it is that super regional nature of our economy. We've said this before on the show that New Buffalo's strength is good for South Bend, is good for Elkhart, which then is good for Niles and is goes on into St. Joe. It is such a regional economy. I remember a couple of years ago we did a show where one of the economic development folks up in Berrien County was tracking cell phone usage to see how people were crossing the border, and it really is. He found that they start in the South Bend region and they stop up, kind of within our viewing region. So I think this shows a great opportunity for us to tell the stories around there, all parts of them. Every part of what brings it to it. We talk about the water. I still think that the water is the power of the region. Every community is touched by some form of waterway, whether it be, LaPorte's wetlands, or it's the river, or it's Lake Michigan. All of those are such vibrant parts of our community and the economy.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think we'll make sure we get out to some of those spots, and and I think of just this water here, for example, in the 1950s. Early 1950s, wastewater treatment isn't even here yet, and this isn't a place that you want to go out and enjoy. And now there's hundreds of people that travel every day on the Riverwalk, and some of these things take time. It's interesting when we talk to some of our guests. These are sometimes seeds that were planted a long time ago that took a little while to cultivate and fertilize and grow. And I use the Riverwalk system, for example. It was the 1970s, 1978, where there was a plan put together to connect South Haven and Elkhart. And each of the communities over time have sort of chipped away at that. The Cal Haven Trail, for example, took you South Haven to Kalamazoo. They've looked at the former rail line that goes from Kalamazoo down to South Bend, dripped through South Bend into Mishawaka. Mishawaka and Maycog have just started looking at how do we connect Mishawaka and Elkhart. And so that'll be sort of the next phase. And that seems like a long time ago when you start talking about 1978, but
we're dating ourselves.
But thankfully, folks were thinking ahead and says, how do we influence what's happening in communities there and stuff too. So let's shift a little bit and let's talk industry, because I always say, like, we're like in our role here, we're talking about kind of people and companies and projects, and the projects get a lot of attention and people love it, I think, because they want to know more about what's happening. But what's going on in these companies too, and the chance to sort of go in and show the innovation that's happening there. Share that a little bit, George. You've been out into some of those companies before and seen the robotics that's happening there, or you've been out to the Idea Center to talk about what's going on there. As we think about that, what's that going to look like for us this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm excited to see kind of a firsthand view of what Amazon's doing. I think that data centers are somewhat misunderstood. Mm-hmm. There's a sci-fi perception of them. They don't buzz at night. They're definitely very vital to what we do in a digital economy. So I'm excited about that. I'm always excited to see our smaller businesses that tend to be larger than we give them credit for. We still have yet to go see Clay's Candy's new facility. They've built a shiny new factory out on the west side of South Bend that I think if it tastes as good as the old place, we're going for sure. Right. But there are so many that I can think of. Edgewater Automation that we visited a few years ago that makes automated assembly lines that push the envelope and are so much more than you would think in a sleepy corner of the Midwest.
Yeah. I think it's fun as we're in those conversations, just to even talk about the employment opportunities. We spend a little time on the education space too, because we want to make sure people are educated for the jobs of tomorrow and such. And so I think that'll be great to look at. I want to maybe build off of, you mentioned like AWS, for example, and data centers start eliciting conversations about power and other things. We've talked a little bit briefly, and maybe some focus this year on some of the things happening in the power space. So, for example, solar is high on everybody's list.
On one list or another.
Right, yes, exactly. But I think some unique solar opportunities, for example, Notre Dame's doing some on campus. There's some solar happening out on the west side and south sides of the county. There's some Crossroads Solar, for example. The company in South Bend is building solar panels, for example. And so I think we're hoping to dive a little bit deeper. We've done a few shows on solar in the past, but as it garners more attention from people here locally, I think it would be beneficial for us to spend a little time on some projects like
You know, solar is, as I mentioned, solar's become a lightning rod topic, you know, much more so than many other power technologies. And you know, generating power is never an easy thing.
Right.
There is no one great solution. Our region is home to 2 nuclear plants. One is about to be restarted by the state of Michigan and the federal government in Palisades.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars are being spent on that effort. The Cook Nuclear Plant had an effective life when it was built of 25 years, and here we are 45 years later, and it's still going strong. You know, I think all of that is a testament to our connection to energy, and you know, looking at solar as anything but an energy solution, I think is wrong. I think that we should look at solar and understand how it can play a role. Is it the solution? I don't know that. I was very excited to spend some time at Notre Dame with the professor who really looked at a number of different technologies that are emerging in that industry, including micronuclear reactors that are going to power university campuses and such. So I think there's more to come, and I would be very surprised if our region didn't end up being at the forefront of some of those new efforts, as it's always been.
I think, you know, it's interesting. I think of the crossroads of America, people are thinking of the logistics side of this, but also on the power side. And when you think of, like, we've been out to INDEC and the power plant up in Niles, you mentioned the 2 nuclear plants, St. Joe Energy Center here. So we're in the middle of the production of so many of those powers, the growth of solar. We've got some hydro going a little bit as well as part of the Sites Park, you know, project to help do some things on campus at Notre Dame. And so a lot of different pieces there. So I think the energy piece is such an important conversation. The data centers have elicited power and water conversations.
Sure.
So I think it'll be appropriate to have some water conversations this year too, and we'll hope to sort of help people better understand just the aquifer and the use and some of those kind of things that really are driving the economy. Without the plentiful aquifers that we have here, we're not in the mix for big projects like GM or Amazon or Microsoft.
And at the same time, I think our leaders have been thoughtful about protecting the aquifer, not just making it a free-for-all with it. However, you know, it is a tool, it is a resource, and as you mentioned earlier, in years past, it's been a darker resource. Right. It's been a place where we've, you know, flushed waste and industrial waste and human waste. That's no longer happening. I mean, when you go see your natural waterways, where we sit today is a great example. Walk over the pedestrian bridge on the north side of Buter Park and take a look at the water. It almost looks like something you'd want to swim in, and that's not something you could have possibly ever thought of even 30 years ago. Yeah,
right before we taped, I walked right down to the water and thought something very similar. It was very clear. It was really neat to see, and so yeah, exciting to see this. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper. As I think of some other topics, you know, on our agenda, like we typically spend a little time on campus, and Notre Dame gets a lot of the attention. We have a lot of other college opportunities here locally as well. IUSB, for example, just opened a brand new medical lab, which is just phenomenal, and so we hope you'll get a chance to get out there in the next few weeks and see this, where it feels like a hospital setting. You're giving students some real world training. It's hard to put that into words, which is why I think getting you out to sort of show places like that is going to be really exciting. But talk a little bit about just universities and kind of their influence on the community.
Well, I've had the privilege and the pleasure of going to a number of our universities, including IUSB, Notre Dame. We have Holy Cross. We have St. Mary's. We have Andrews University up in Berrien Springs. Bethel. We have a number of higher IUSB. We have a number of higher education institutions here.
Goshen College.
And those, you know, those are very vital to training a workforce that is able to sustain these types of high-end projects. It is, while workforce development still you know, remains an issue, I think in part it isn't because of there's a lack of educational opportunities. You know, you said Goshen College, and then I thought of Ancilla University and the nursing program down there that we visited last season, and the efforts that are being made to train nurses and the other vital roles that we need in society. So you know, without those educational institutions, at the most fundamental level, there wouldn't be much. And then, of course, you know, whatever your alma mater might be, I think we can all agree that Notre Dame holds a special place amongst the group. And not only because of its size and its international presence, but because of that leadership that it brings. It's doing a great job of commercializing technology, giving both students, faculty, and community members an opportunity to utilize the university's resources to get their ideas launched. So it becomes a cornerstone of our community.
And let's stay at Notre Dame for a quick second, because two projects that announced that I think our viewers want to know more about is the Notre Dame Downtown Project, which is the purchase of the former South Bend Tribune and building and the redevelopment of that block. And so we'd like to feature that and hear more about what's going on. And then recently the Northern Edge project. This is on 933 and Douglas Road, north of campus. And I would call it an Eddy Street-like development, mixed-use development up there that stands to bring a lot of new residential units and some mixed-use commercial and such. And so going to be an exciting investment. And so we hope to dive deeper into those this year as well. As we get into our last 5 minutes or so, George, you know, a couple other things on the agenda, like the Indiana General Assembly meets in the middle of our season, and this is a budget year, and so we pay close attention to that. So we'll be following issues, you know, and it's interesting as I watch, you know, kind of what's on the agenda already. They're talking about some of the things we've already been talking about with energy or water or some of those kind of things. Because it's a budget year, we'll certainly be looking at those priorities and such. So that's something that we'll pay close attention to. We just had the submission for READY applications here in the last couple of weeks. READY was a fund from the state of Indiana that put $500 million out for quality of place improvements in the state. So our RDA is currently contemplating the award on those projects, and will sometime the first half of this year come up with those projects. So it'll be a chance for us to feature some of the READY projects and talk a little bit more as well too. So a lot of, you know, kind of fun opportunities for us. Anything else that, you know, pops to your head? What, you know, that you'd like to make sure we focus on? I know, I really am.
But I'll tell you, you know, you say fun, and I think there's probably no more fun place to go visit here in our region than Four Winds Field and the South Bend Cubs. I know I saw on the front page of the Tribune the other day they have started their project, or at least are beyond some milestones. So I think that experience is going to be almost unrecognizable next year or the year after. I don't recall how long construction takes. Yeah. You probably know. And I think that you know, it's always great to see a great product on the field, but even more importantly, it's just such a great place for families. We talk about quality of place and what that brings. It brings a sense of belonging to folks who might come here or be attracted to come here to help the economy grow, you know, to get jobs and to be a part of the community. So there's nothing more fun than the Cubs, I think. Although going back home, I'm from Berrien County, so getting up near Lake Michigan is always fun. I'm sure we will have some stories from Cornerstone and our partners up in St. Joe Benton Harbor about some continued growth there, and some changes in those communities and developments. And you know, I look forward to getting back out to Kosciuszko County. We haven't been out there in a couple of years, and we know they have a lot of great things going on as well.
You know, so, I think of a couple others. We're at a critical inflection point with South Shore, for example. We've done that a few times. The application for federal funding should be ready late 24, early 25, and so I think that's going to be top of mind of people here locally, and so a chance to really dive into what that plan looks like. They've been working on refining that. I think that's a 1991 temporary plan that's lasted a long time, and now time to contemplate something different, and for us to give folks a chance to really understand that at a greater level. No disrespect to the other forms of media, but those quick stories sometimes don't allow you to dive into the depth that we're able to do. You touched real quick on just moving out to the broader region, and I think that's such a critical priority for us, is to get out across that region. And so, you know, we I think rely heavily on our viewers and our partners across the region to suggest those unique opportunities that you know, for us to go. And our hope is that we get on the road and we go do some of that.
I'd love to do it. I think that, we've been to as far east as LaPorte County. They've got some great opportunities going on. Mayor Dermody over there is doing a nice job. We've been as far north as Benton Harbor or even up into Sodus. The bypass is complete and connected to 94 and 96. And I think we're seeing the effects of that. It's become quite the hub. Right here at home, we're seeing a lot of development in both Mishawaka, South Bend, Elkhart, and down into Marshall County. Can't forget Marshall County and some of the great stuff that they've taken the bull by the horn down there and been masters of their own destiny.
Yep. He's George Leffaniotis. He's my co-host. George, welcome. It's going to be a great season. We look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you having me and working with us.
That's it for our show today. Thank you for watching. Remember to tune in to us each week on WNIT. Watch for us on WNIT.org. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I'm Jeff Ray. I'll see you next time.
This WNIT local production has been made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.